Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. It was a chilly January evening in Los Angeles, the kind where the fog from the Pacific seems to curl around the city like a whispered secret. Inside a sleek, dimly lit studio on Broadway, Katherine LaNasa sat poised, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Her usually confident posture carried a hint of tension tonight, a subtle tremor that even the most casual observer would notice. Tonight, she wasn't just an actress promoting her latest film. Tonight, she was about to be caught in a moment of vulnerability few ever witnessed. The story that brought her to the edge of tears was not one of scandal or heartbreak. It was, surprisingly, a story told by Stephen Colbert, the late-night host known for his sharp wit and often playful irreverence. Yet this particular story hit Katherine in a way she hadn't anticipated. Colbert had been discussing the enduring struggles of child actors in Hollywood, tracing the trajectory from bright-eyed innocence to the pressures of fame, and then to the harsh realities of adult life. As Katherine listened from backstage, she felt a deep resonance with the narrative. She had grown up in the limelight, yes, but she had also watched friends and colleagues falter under the weight of the industry's expectations. The story on Colbert's desk tonight was different. It was about kindness, resilience, and the power of connection amidst chaos. When the cameras rolled and she walked onto the stage, Katherine was greeted with applause, her smile bright and practiced. She waved to the audience, thanked Colbert, and took her seat opposite him. But her mind was elsewhere. The words he had shared earlier in rehearsal echoed like a refrain in her mind. Sometimes the story we think is about someone else is really about us, and it's only when we let ourselves feel it fully that we can truly understand it. Colbert leaned forward, his eyes twinkling behind his signature glasses. "Katherine, you've had such an interesting journey in Hollywood. You've seen it all, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. Tonight, though, I want to talk about something a little different. We were discussing childhood fame, and it reminded me of you, actually. How did you navigate all of that?" Katherine swallowed hard. For a moment, she felt as though the weight of every role, every audition, every critique she had ever received was pressing down on her chest. She looked at Colbert, not with the practiced charm of a television star, but with genuine vulnerability. "It's complicated," she began softly. "Growing up in this business, you learn to perform before you even know who you are. You learn to smile when it hurts, to be charming when you feel invisible, and sometimes you forget what it feels like to just be." The audience was silent, hanging on her every word. Katherine's voice quivered slightly as she continued. "I watched so many people around me, talented, beautiful, kind people, get lost in the machinery of Hollywood, and I promised myself I wouldn't. But there were times when I wondered if anyone could survive this world without losing a piece of themselves." Colbert nodded, giving her a moment to gather her thoughts. "And yet, here you are. Clearly, you've managed to hold on to that piece. What's your secret?" Katherine took a deep breath, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself to speak from the heart without pretense. "There isn't really a secret. It's about finding the people who see you, not the character you play, not the face on the poster, but you, the real you. For me, that's family, friends, and even strangers who show kindness in the smallest ways. Those moments keep you sane." As she spoke, her eyes glistened. A single tear traced a path down her cheek, catching the studio lights. The audience stirred quietly, sensing the raw honesty in her confession. Colbert reached out, placing a reassuring hand on the desk, his expression a mix of empathy and admiration. "Katherine, thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of people, your fans, people watching at home, need to hear that, especially in a world that constantly tells us to put on a brave face. It's important to know it's okay to feel." Katherine smiled through her tears, the tension in her shoulders slowly easing. "I just hope that when people see me being vulnerable, they know it's not weakness, it's strength. Strength to admit that life isn't perfect, that we struggle, and that it's okay to need help. We can't do it all alone." The segment continued, but the tone had shifted. Colbert, known for his humor, allowed a quiet, reflective space to linger. He asked Katherine about her recent projects, her passion for theater, and her advocacy work, yet the emotional weight of her earlier words hung in the air like a gentle fog, leaving a lasting impression on everyone watching. Backstage, after the cameras had stopped rolling and the applause had faded, Katherine sat quietly, still processing what had just happened. One of the production assistants approached her cautiously, unsure if she should speak. "You were amazing," the assistant said softly. "Everyone in the control room was talking about how real you were." Katherine nodded, a small smile forming. "I think sometimes people expect celebrities to be perfect, to have it all together, but the truth is, we're human too. We just forget that sometimes." She walked slowly towards the exit, the cool night air brushing against her face. As she stepped outside, she looked up at the stars scattered across the Los Angeles sky. There was a sense of quiet triumph in that moment, not from accolades or career milestones, but from having allowed herself to be fully seen. For Katherine, the Colbert story had unlocked something more profound than she had anticipated. It reminded her that emotion was not a liability, but a bridge connecting her to the people around her. It reminded her that her experiences, both painful and joyous, had meaning beyond the screen, touching lives in ways she might never fully understand. The next morning, Katherine's phone buzzed incessantly. Fans from around the world had taken to social media, sharing clips of her interview and expressing how much her words had resonated with them. Messages poured in, people who had faced bullying, heartbreak, or doubt, who found solace in her honesty. Some admitted they had been hiding their tears while watching her. Others simply wrote, "Thank you for being human." Katherine read the messages slowly, letting the warmth of connection wash over her. She felt a renewed sense of purpose, a reminder that her career was not just about roles and awards, but about storytelling that mattered. And sometimes the stories that mattered most were the ones that came from her own heart. Later that week, Katherine sat in her home studio, a cozy space filled with books, photographs, and memorabilia from her career. She picked up her journal, something she hadn't done in months, and began to write. "Today, I cried on national television, not because I was sad, but because I felt, because I allowed myself to feel, and in that moment, I understood something profound. Emotion is a gift. Connection is everything, and kindness, small, deliberate kindness, is how we survive this world without losing ourselves." She paused, looking out the window at the city below. The streets were alive with movement, yet she felt a serene stillness within. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't thinking about the next audition, the next role, or the next expectation. She was simply Katherine, human, imperfect, and deeply alive. The story of her interview with Colbert spread quickly, making headlines for its emotional candor. Articles highlighted her courage, fans celebrated her authenticity, and industry colleagues expressed admiration for her willingness to show vulnerability on such a public platform. Yet, for Katherine, the true impact was private and profound. She understood that fame was fleeting, accolades were temporary, but human connection, real, heartfelt connection, was timeless. And through her tears on that stage, she had discovered something she had long forgotten, that allowing oneself to be seen, to be vulnerable, and to be honest was not only liberating but transformative. By the end of the week, Katherine received an unexpected call from Colbert himself. "Katherine," he said warmly, "thank you for trusting the story enough to make it your own. Your words touched so many people. It reminded me why we tell stories in the first place." Katherine smiled, her eyes glinting with gratitude. "Thank you, Stephen, for reminding me that it's okay to feel, and that feeling is where the real stories live." As she hung up, Katherine felt a renewed sense of purpose. Her career would continue, but now she carried something more enduring than fame. She carried authenticity, empathy, and the quiet courage to embrace every part of herself. And in a world that often demanded perfection, that was the most radical and beautiful act of all. The
The city outside continued its endless rhythm, but Katherine moved through it with a lighter heart. She had cried, she had felt, and she had shared her truth, and in doing so she had reminded herself and the world that emotion was not a weakness, but a bridge to connection, healing, and the endearing power of the human spirit. As she turned off the lights in her home studio and prepared for bed, Katherine whispered to herself, almost as if making a promise, "I will remember this feeling, I will honor it, and I will never forget that sometimes the stories that matter most are the ones we find within ourselves."